Hey everyone, this is Jay, also known as jaynemesis on eToro, where I trade as a popular investor. This is week 33 of our weekly updates for 2018. Our top news this week, Tesla drama continues, Nvidia unveils the Turing architecture, and Venezuela has pegged their economy to the petro. So starting with Tesla, as you guys know, Tesla had a really good earnings call about 2 weeks ago. Everything was looking really, really good for them. But just over a week ago, Elon Musk sent out a tweet suggesting that he would like to take Tesla private at a price of around $420 and that he had already secured funding for this. Fast forward, and after a lot of crazy events, including the SEC going in to investigate it, the trading was halted for a while. Tesla actually confirmed that they were doing internal investigations into it. And most recently, we had the New York Times release an article about Elon Musk and the struggles he's been going through with the company. In that, he admitted that basically he picked the $420 price out of thin air because he liked the number. He admitted that he didn't seek permission from the board at Tesla before making that tweet and that it was not planned. And basically that he has been struggling with sleep and effectively his mental health while running Tesla. So as a result, the price shot up. We made some good profits when it was going up following the tweet, as did many others, I'm sure. But unfortunately, we were left with some pretty nasty bags that I kind of slowly let go of over the past week or so, which you'll see in the report for this week. So overall, it's been a pretty rocky road. I did make a separate post on eToro, basically with like a small timeline of events and when it's happened, so you guys can actually see exactly what's been going on. But it has been very, very difficult to predict. I really didn't expect this New York Times article to come out and what's kind of come from the back of that. So unfortunately, we did lose some money on this. Next up, Nvidia. So Nvidia also had their earnings pretty recently. They were one of the later earnings calls. Again, that went pretty well apart from crypto, which is as I expected. But they are, of course, now unveiling their new Turing architecture. That's actually happening today. It's just happened, actually, so I've seen what it is. I haven't really dug into it too much yet. But as suspected, ray tracing is like the big thing that Nvidia is focusing on for good reason, because number one, it puts them in it kind of maintains their market leading position against AMD and the like for graphics, and of course it's a really cool technology. So it's pretty interesting. I had theorized that they were going to rename GTX graphics cards to RTX, which is exactly what they did. This actually came from Adored TV on YouTube, which is a really good source for news and information and leaks in the graphics card and CPU kind of space. So he's a really good source, so you should definitely check him out if you haven't yet, and you're interested in this kind of stuff. But basically, they've released their new cards. They haven't really released benchmarks or anything like that yet, so we're looking to see that over the next few weeks. But so far, it looks really, really promising, to be honest, and I think it will be a strong couple of quarters for Nvidia as they ship those products out to people who are perhaps kind of waiting on the sidelines for the next generation before they decided to upgrade. Finally, Venezuela. So Venezuela have, as you probably know, have been really struggling economically. They are basically in a hyperinflation state at the moment, and the economy is just absolutely crumbling. They did a very, very strange move this week, and they decided to peg salaries and everything like that to the petro, which is their cryptocurrency. I did kind of cover this when they first created the cryptocurrency back in, I think it was February kind of time. And it seems like there's a lot of flaws and a lot of confusion here on how it works and everything like that. It's really not very detailed in the white paper about the petro. I actually did some analysis on it a while ago and discovered that there were only about 100 accounts on the petro that actually had any petro in them. So nobody has really started using this yet, but they did suggest that Venezuela's biggest oil company, the nationalized oil company for Venezuela, is going to start using the petro on August the 20th. And I believe that involves paying their staff in it directly as well, as opposed to their current currency. It will still work hand in hand with their current currency as well. But as a result of this, it appears that they are giving minimum wage has gone up by something around 3,000%, which is absolutely insane. I don't think it's going to work at all. It's an interesting topic because of, I think, the impact it's going to have on the crypto sphere. Obviously, it's very, very good for user adoption because, in theory, it's more likely to convince some people to perhaps take this more seriously and investigate other alternatives. And as we've seen over the past few years, there are a few cryptocurrencies that have done really, really well in Venezuela. Dash being one of them. Bitcoin, of course, has done very well as well. And more recently, Nano has done incredibly well over there too. So I think all three of these cryptos could actually see a substantial boost in adoption as a result of this, purely because people will kind of see this, see how bad it is, and potentially then move over to different cryptocurrencies. Because, of course, this is still acting as a device to help educate people on how a cryptocurrency works and how to use it. So I'm interested to see where it goes. I do think, unfortunately, it's really kind of just passing the buck a little, kicking the can a bit further down the road, I guess, if you will. And it's not going to really help the people in Venezuela very much. But hopefully it can spur on more interest into cryptocurrency, and hopefully some of those people over in Venezuela can discover some of these other currencies and use those to store their value slightly better than what they have at the moment. Our trading stats for this week, we have a portfolio change of minus 3.82%, a realized profit of minus 2.82%, 19 trades were closed in total, 9 of them were profitable, and 10 were unprofitable. The most traded instrument was Bitcoin this week. So, diving into our cryptos, and as you can see, we actually had a pretty active week in cryptos for the first time in a while. This is for a couple of reasons. So, as you will, I'm kind of going to go through this not necessarily entirely in order, just because it's easier to explain where the money was going. So I actually closed a couple of long-term positions in both Ethereum and Bitcoin. This was actually ahead of a further drop that happened. So I closed the positions in Ethereum at around 290, which is roughly where the price is at the moment. But it did drop down to like 260 or so in Ethereum, and likewise the same with the Bitcoin positions as well. The funds that I received from closing those positions were actually used to make all of the other profitable trades pretty much that you see on this page, including the 2 shorts on Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin. The short on Bitcoin, which unfortunately went against us, that was pretty poorly timed by me. The market decided to reverse a bit earlier than I anticipated. And the profits we made on EOS as well. So overall, it's kind of a mixed bag. Obviously, we still have that money available, and I do think that there is a chance that we can come back down and test new lows potentially. But we have currently, as it stands right now, it does appear that we are bouncing off of this 6K support. So we'll see where it lands us. I think we probably have another week or so until we kind of close out the descending triangle pattern that we have on Bitcoin, and from there we can kind of see where things go. But yeah, not great results. Obviously, I realized quite a few losses here, but I have since then kind of moved those funds over into different cryptocurrencies. So we've got slightly more exposure to Stellar, and we have slightly more exposure now to IOTA, which is our new crypto that was added to eToro today. So we have one position in IOTA as well, which is currently doing okay. Stock recap. So for once, we didn't go mad trading stocks this week. There really wasn't actually that much activity. Most of my trading was based around Square and Tesla. So Tesla, we had 2 positions closed for a pretty substantial loss on both of them. This was ahead of the New York Times article, both of these trades though, although there was one that I closed this morning, which was unfortunately after it. So that one was a much more substantial loss. These 2 trades basically negated what we earned from Tesla previously, and the trade that was closed today again was the one that effectively ended up costing us substantially and leaving us in a losing position after this kind of 2-week period of trading Tesla. I don't really have any plans to open any positions in Tesla again for a while. I really need to kind of wait and see how this unfolds. There is a lot of vulnerabilities as I see it with Tesla at the moment, from everything from the SEC investigation to the class action lawsuits that are taking place. There's quite a few different things that could could turn bad for Tesla and kind of hurt them ahead of their next earnings and potentially leave the company in a much worse position. So as a result, I'm going to kind of just sit on the sidelines and watch it for now and steer clear of it. With Square, we have made yet more solid profits. It's kind of just bouncing around the like $70 to $75 range at the moment. So we're just making lots of small trades in there for the most part. But overall, their progress has been really quite staggering. The Cash App, as I mentioned here in the text, has been doing very, very well, and actually just overtook Venmo in the last couple of days. So it's all looking really, really good for Square. As I mentioned, I think in last week's update as well, they are now offering crypto basically across the US through their Cash App as well. So Square is just looking like an amazing company right now, and I just want to continue to increase exposure and also to continue to do these small trades in it as well at the same time, so that we can hopefully outperform Square, as well as benefiting from the big gains that lie ahead, hopefully. Snapchat released their earnings as well recently, and they were not as bad as I expected them to be. They weren't great, but they certainly weren't bad either. So I decided to finally close my last short that I had open for them for a loss of 3.9%. It's not as bad as it sounds, because obviously we had a lot of very, very strong trades in Snapchat over the past year or so. Lots of between 5 and 15% gains. Pretty regularly, like one a month or so, maybe one every couple of weeks. So overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I don't really mind too much closing this position at a loss. I would rather have the funds available to trade elsewhere and kind of bulk up our portfolio a bit more. First Solar, so another big realized loss here of minus 22.1%. This was again to free up more cash to invest elsewhere and kind of start building up other areas of the portfolio, because of course both First Solar and SolarEdge I do expect to continue to struggle for the remainder of this year. They are still both companies that I think will do very, very well in the long term. But at the moment, there is excess supply in the solar industry, and it's still likely to continue to kind of hold these guys back from really pushing forward and heading towards new highs. So for the time being, I figured that it was worth closing that position. I may close one or two more, depending on how the stock moves, if I see a decent spike to sell it during. But if not, I'm not too unhappy with the exposure we have there. They are both two of my largest positions in stocks, though. Finally, a small day trade on Take-Two for 1.4% profit. There's really not too much to say about that. I'm pretty happy with how it went. On to performance. As you can see, I've actually changed the numbers in the portfolio change. And we've got a little disclaimer at the bottom that explains where we're getting these numbers from, because we realized that the numbers that are coming through from the report are slightly different to what's shown on my eToro stats page in the portfolio change. And the reason for that basically is that the stats that we get end at exactly midnight over the period that we've selected. So over, week 33, for example, or month or August to date, it literally ends at midnight on Sunday. Whereas eToro has a few different kind of quirks in terms of how it handles numbers. So it doesn't update over weekends, for example, and it updates at kind of a random time of day that I'm not entirely sure what time of day it is. But it does mean that sometimes basically the portfolio changes slightly out, and even the realized trades are slightly out from what I'm reporting. In theory, we should be more accurate than the eToro website and app, which is why we decided to go with this method. And of course, eToro's website doesn't actually give you weekly stats, so we figured that this was a better way to go. So it's all consistent. All of these are from the reports that I download directly from eToro, and then we do the maths to figure out the numbers involved. If you guys are interested, we can start making these reports public, so you guys can clearly see everything that's going on in them, just to make sure that we haven't, done any bad maths or anything like that. But hopefully it should be pretty self-explanatory. In terms of how we've been performing, August to date is not looking great. I did say that I expected August to be a pretty bad month for us, and so far it's certainly living up to that reputation. We have started to see a substantial bounce in the cryptos, though, starting basically over the weekend. So hopefully we can perhaps see a nice positive week this week. It really depends on what else is going to happen. We obviously closed that that Tesla trade this morning, so that's kind of put us off to a bad start. In terms of our realized trading, as you can see, we've been pretty consistently closing greens on a weekly basis, and our monthly isn't too bad either. So we're slightly down because June was bad, but over the past 4 months, but it's not looking too terrible considering where the cryptos and where the solar stocks have kind of left us. So hopefully we can keep moving forward and progress from here and really start to turn this around soon. There is a real chance that this is the bottom of the market, but I don't want to overhype it too much because I think there's still also a substantial chance that we actually head lower from here in terms of crypto prices. So we'll kind of see how high this bounce goes, and hopefully we can cash out a few more positions at the top so that we're ready to catch some of the lower positions in crypto as they approach, and potentially even short if we think it's going to head down to new lows again. So what are we looking forward to? Well, I mean, I think at the moment my focus is on understanding what's going on with NVIDIA pretty well. So they just released their new GPUs over in Cologne in Germany is where they announced it all at Gamescom. So we've seen the new GPUs. What we really need to see next is the benchmarks and just how widely adopted they can get ray tracing technology as well, because that will also be a big driver in the sales of these cards. If they manage to convince a lot of big AAA titles to actually use ray tracing in their titles, then we should see a big uptick in sales of these graphics cards as people want to use that technology and they can't on the current generation of graphics cards that are out there. So I'm interested to see that. I'm interested to see the benchmarks just to see exactly how much better or worse they are than the current graphics cards out on the market. We have a rough idea, and usually NVIDIA goes with the rule of trying to aim between 30 and 50% better than the last generation. But for the moment, we don't know what it is, so that should be something interesting to look forward to. We also have, as I just mentioned, Gamescom. So Gamescom is one of the biggest gaming events in the world, probably the second biggest after E3. And there are a few companies that use it for big releases. It's often the first time we get to see actual real demos of gameplay. So I'm expecting potentially to see something from Activision Blizzard surrounding maybe the Overwatch League or something to do with Overwatch in general. Of course, they've just got their new World of Warcraft stuff that's just been released as well. So there's potential to see something from Activision. There could be stuff from EA. There could be stuff from Take-Two. We don't really know at the moment, but it's certainly something to keep our eyes on. That just about does it for me, guys. Thanks for watching. Please leave any comments and feedback on my Twitter, my YouTube, and of course on eToro. And I will always try to respond to as many comments as I can.